kill me, man! Don't kill me! Don't kill me, man!
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Hi, this is Joe, and this is the Filmjoe Podcast, where film talk happens.
1, 2, 3, 4!
Hi, I'm Joe, your host, and I'm joined here by Carlos.
Hi, guys.
And welcome to the podcast, where we talk about films, filmmakers, trends, the good, the bad, and the not so bad, all in the spirit and for the love of film. So on today's episode, we're going back to the 80s, one by one, as we pick out a significant film from each year of that decade. Now, this wasn't an easy task, considering the fact that, well, the 80s were known for dozens and dozens of iconic classic films. So yeah, there be quite a few films that are not on this list that should be, but hopefully the ones we did pick, well, hopefully they'll be satisfactory enough. So, well, first,
okay. What have you seen lately that isn't from the 80s or want to talk about?
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
I recently, I saw Creed 3 finally.
Oh, okay. How is it?
It's not bad. Definitely Creed 2 was the better of the films. And, on its own, it's not a bad film, but you do feel the absence of Stallone in the spirit.
I mean, the whole Creed movie started because of the Rocky movies.
Right.
The whole spin-off character of Apollo Creed's son.
Right. And, in a way, it's kind of, I don't know, you kind of say a little messed up that they didn't bring him in on this because he wasn't asked to come back. Yeah, so it's almost like Michael B. Jordan just wanted to, this is his first, this was his directorial debut, I believe. So I guess he wanted to be his own thing. But you can't deny the connection to the original Rocky. And you definitely feel that element missing. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, it's good. I mean, the fight scenes are great. It's a lot of action, a lot of fun. I also got to, on some streamer, I recently saw a movie called The Manor from Blumhouse.
What's it about?
It's basically about an elderly lady who's put into convalescence home by her daughter. And there's some weird stuff going on there with boogeymen and witchcraft or whatever. With Barbara Hershey, she's in it. And it was actually pretty darn good. Blumhouse, at this point, you can't really go wrong. You're gonna get an
enjoyable film out of it.
Yeah, you're gonna get something out of it too, really, really good. But it was good. I'm not gonna give away too much about it. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a really cool ending. It kind of creeps up on you, and it kind of reminds me, has some elements of these mid to late 70s TV or even theatrical films where you have this person coming into this environment and there's something weird going on, and then there's a group of people kind of like conspiring with supernatural elements, and kind of like Rosemary's Baby and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Stepford Wives. For those of you way too young to know what that is, Google it. Some good stuff. But that's about it. That's basically what I've been watching lately. What about yourself?
Well, this week I have not seen anything because I have been busy the entire week painting, redecorating, and building furniture for my room.
Yeah, the house is, the whole living room is full of your stuff. Your mom and I can't even get through the kitchen.
Correct. Living room, part of the kitchen, everything is a mess. Yeah. And that's my fault. But it looks really nice.
Yeah, you did this sort of
mosaic art piece in my
geometric kind of thing. It's in pastels.
Mm-hmm,
it's a pastel nightmare. But it's cool. It came out really, really good.
It's like the Easter Bunny threw up all over my room.
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that one, but it looks good. It looks good. All right, so what do you say we go ahead and dive into this episode?
I say.
All right, so let's start with 1980. We're talking about a film about a bunch of rebels who are overpowered by the Empire and are on the run. You have Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Boba Fett, all these great characters. We're talking about The Empire Strikes Back, directed by George Lucas, and starred Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher. I mean, this was a huge one.
Absolutely.
This one pretty much solidified the summer season that had been preceded by, what was it, Jaws 1975. Yeah. And brought in a pretty penny for the studio, which Lucas, it was an independent film, by the way.
Uh-huh.
And he went on ahead and financed the entire film on his own, although the studio kind of had to jump in a little bit to help fill in that gap.
Okay, so kind of like saying, hey, we kind of see you struggling, but here's a little extra.
And in exchange, Lucas gave him higher, back end points for the profits for the film. Mm-hmm. But this was a huge one. This was the one that it really solidified the seriousness of the genre and made it a mainstay in American and global cinema. Science fiction, fantasy, adventure, robots, creatures, spaceships. It was explosive.
Well, I mean, look at how big the genre is now. I mean, spaceships, science fiction, space exploration, anything of the sorts.
Yeah, and, we have Star Wars and that whole franchise to thank for it. Although, where the franchise is going today is still, it's kind of questionable.
Yeah, some of the later movies were okay. Some of them were really good. But, I mean, I'm excited for it just because I like Star Wars, I want to see more of it eventually.
Yeah. I mean, if they can do something original, something new, and not beat a dead horse. I'm almost at the point where I'm like, no more Star Wars. We're done.
The only thing they have going right now is The Mandalorian.
Mandalorian is, yeah.
And The Bad Batch. I know you don't watch it, but it's really good. Also, The Clone Wars was really good.
They don't count.
They count.
They're animation.
They're Star Wars stories.
They don't count. I mean, they're good. They're pretty decent. I've seen a few episodes of each, and the writing is pretty solid in the characters. But I mean, to me, Star Wars has always been something that should be experienced on a huge 30-foot screen with surround sound and live action and special effects and things along that nature. That is right. Star Wars. I'm not taking away from the animation, side of things, although they still don't count. So they don't count. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting where the whole the whole franchise is going to go from this point, because the Star Wars community is very divisive right now.
Yeah.
And very, online vitriol is at an all-time high with these so-called fans. And, if it were up to me, I'm like, you know what, screw you all. You don't get no more Star Wars. No more Star Wars for you.
No more Star Wars for you.
And nothing for, maybe you.
Well, maybe you. You were cool.
Yeah, maybe you. Otherwise, go away. Yeah. So, but yeah, Empire, in fact, it's one of I'd have to say my top Star Wars film.
It's mine for sure.
Yeah.
There's no competition that even comes close. I mean, Star Wars had the biggest cinematograph. The biggest reveal of all time when it comes to movies.
The cinematic reveal.
Eso. Yeah, that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, which, we're not going to ruin it for those who haven't seen it, but Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. So next.
That one single person out there.
Who doesn't know. Now you know. So next we're going to go to 1981. And we're going to go with the story of an archaeologist back in 1936 who's hired by the U.S. government to find and recover the Ark of the Covenant before those evil, dastardly Nazis do. Nazis. We're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Harrison Ford and Karen Allen. Here is another film that brought back a genre that had pretty much been dead and gone, which was the exotic action adventure in the jungle, swinging from vine to vine kind of exploration type of film in the cliffhanger. And which is fantastic. This stuff is Star Wars. Same with Star Wars. These kind of films had been around already, but in the 50s. But newer audience forgot about this stuff, the style, the excitement,
Yeah, the adventure, the sense of awe.
You got a roguish kind of hero who's kind of rough around the edges. He has no...
Harrison Ford.
He's the man. Yeah. He doesn't have that exact moral compass. He'll shoot a bad guy without even asking twice. And it's great stuff. But, he wasn't the first choice to play Han Solo. He wasn't the first choice to be Indiana Jones. It was supposed to be Tom Selleck.
Ah,
Now,
okay.
and it's interesting, in an interesting switcheroo or Hollywood switcheroo, it was supposed to be Tom Selleck. Okay, who was going to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you kind of struggled there, bud.
Yeah, I lost it there for a second. But yeah, he was going to be Indy, so he was offered the role, but he was also offered another role in another film called High Road to China. And so he had these two roles, but they offered Indy to him, and he's like, okay, but he was going to take it. The other film, High Road to China, was already going to go most likely to Roger Moore, Mr. James Bond. James Bond turned it down. So Tom Selleck says, okay, I'll take High Road to China. He turned down Indiana Jones.
Oh, what a horrible choice that ended up being.
He's mentioned it in quite a few interviews that, wow, had he made that choice, I think he would have been great, but, I'm glad we got Harrison Ford in that role instead.
Yeah, it just fits, I would say, a little bit better.
Definitely, yeah. And, but, this such a great film. It's spawned, 4 sequels now? Yeah, four sequels.
Yeah.
The 5th one is coming out, the 4th sequel is coming out just around the corner in May. And,
I'm excited.
Oh, it looks great. It looks great. I hope they don't screw it up. I mean, it's Disney, but...
Maybe. Because, in the timepiece that they're in the 1970s.
Yeah, in the 70s.
70s, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 70... I don't know what it is, but...
70-something at least.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Mangold, I forgot his first name. He's the director of it. He directed Wolverine, Logan. He did Logan.
Oh, okay. See, I was going to say if it was like Wolverine Origins.
Oh, he did that one too.
That one.
But he also
that one was just a story that was messed up.
Right, but he also did Ford versus Ferrari.
Okay, all right.
So he's a pretty solid director.
Okay.
And if anybody can pull it off, I hope it's him. I think he can. And it looks like a lot of fun. Again, right around the corner. So now we're going to go to 1982, another Spielberg classic. And basically, it's a story of a troubled child who summons the courage to help a friendly alien escape from Earth and return home.
Okay, I see what you did there.
You like that? Yeah, thank you. We're talking about E.T. the Extraterrestrial, directed by Steven Spielberg, and it stars Dee Wallace, Henry Thomas, and Drew Barrymore when she was like 6 years old.
Little toddler.
What's interesting about this one, first of all, it was just a beautiful, it's almost a childlike story with important subtext or the subplot. Which is, it's about children dealing with divorce. Yeah, it's what it's about, and really not finding anybody to identify with. He was, he's, for all practical purposes, he's an only child. I mean, his brother is a teenager. He's a little boy. His sister's a little baby, practically. He can't identify with either. His mom is too distracted with the effects of divorce and still reeling from, the whole situation.
Like being caught in the middle of everything that's going on.
Right. And he finds solace in someone else who was lost, like himself. And, in comes E.T. It's a great film. What's interesting is that when they were in production, Spielberg did mention to Dee Wallace that this is kind of his in-between film. It's a small project that he wanted to do, between his bigger projects. It was he had just finished Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he was gearing up in pre-production for a film called Twilight Zone, the movie.
Oh, okay.
And then an additional Indiana Jones right after that. So this one was right in between. And yeah, it's a small little film.
Oh, yeah, small.
And good God, it was one of the biggest films of his career. I mean, globally, it's just an iconic film. This is the little film in between.
This is the small film in between that I'm doing. Kind of not really going to be mentioned much.
Yeah, and it's just it's incredible. I mean, the cinematography, the score, I mean, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's just such a timeless film, and it did inspire wannabe films. A movie called Mac and Me.
Is that about the dog?
No, it's not about the dog. This one is a McDonald's financed film. McDonald's.
The fast food.
The fast food.
Okay.
And it's about a little boy who's in a wheelchair, and he's befriended by an alien who's trying to get back home. And oh, this is, I give him credit for getting it done, I mean, there was McDonald's product placement left and right on this.
Of course there is.
But you really, if you ever want to crack yourself up, and it's please, I'm not being insensitive. But if you ever want to laugh your ass off, okay, go on YouTube and look up Mac and Me wheelchair cliff scene.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. After we finish recording, look it up. And those of you listening now, pause, look it up, and you're going to see it's hilarious. I mean, it's messed up, but it's hilarious. Yeah, this movie was horrible. It was a knockoff and definitely trying to capitalize on the popularity of E.T. But, from E.T. you had gremlins and critters and trolls. And, they were trying to figure out what other little creatures can we throw in there.
Yeah, what would appease the kids?
Yeah, so definitely an influential and very, just a great film. It's timeless.
Timeless, yeah.
You can still watch it today and it'll still hit you the same. There are two versions out there. The updated version where they use a little CGI in certain scenes. And they have the original theatrical.
I watched the theatrical.
Watch the theatrical because you can tell the CG work in the updated version. Thank goodness that Spielberg kept both copies available to the public.
No shame on Lucas or anything?
Not saying anything about Lucas, but yes, Lucas, there is no theatrical version available of Star Wars. There's a few bootleg copies out there that you can torrent. Not that I'm advocating or
absolutely not.
It's illegal.
Very illegal.
You shouldn't do it. Shame on you if you do. So, next up, we're going to go to 1984. Now, this was another aspect of the 80s that was pretty huge, which is the action comedy kind of film.
Okay.
And we're talking, it's a movie, it's about a freewheeling Detroit cop pursuing a murderer that killed his best friend back in Detroit, and he tracks him down to Beverly Hills. We're talking about Beverly Hills Cop, directed by Martin Brest. This movie was it was an R-rated film.
Okay.
And at the time, it was the highest grossing R-rated film there was. And, and the reason because R-rated films, you have less audience.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, you're not going to be able to target the younger demographic.
Right. But nonetheless, it made money. Parents were bringing their 2-year-olds, their 5-year-old kids to listen to Eddie Murphy, spew out F-bombs,
Hey, as long as you don't repeat it,
Yeah, you can hear it. You just can't repeat it. F you, ma. So.
Okay, now, Timmy, that was uncalled for.
Right. Yeah, it was a great film. I mean, what's his name? Eddie Murphy. He had just come off of, it was a movie called 48 Hours.
Okay.
And it was a huge hit. And, he's fresh off of, actually, I think it was in the early 80s, late 70s. He was on Saturday Night Live. And then he made his jump to film with 48 Hours. Huge hit. And he ended up doing Beverly Hills Cop, one of his most iconic roles. Just a great film, a lot of fun. It's basically a parody of Beverly Hills, of L.A., of Southern California culture and subculture. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun, a lot of action, great soundtrack. That's another thing that if you think about the 80s, there were some great films that spawned amazing soundtracks that were selling millions of dollars, at the record store. To all you young children out there who don't know what a record is, it's a big, black, round disc that played music. Kind of like a CD. Remember those? No. Yeah.
Do tell. Is it like Laserdisc?
No, it had a needle.
Ah.
But yeah, I mean, the soundtracks were huge back in the 80s. You had movies like Top Gun, Flashdance, Footloose, Dirty Dancing, Beverly Hills Cop. These sold millions and millions of copies of records.
Do you know the one song that Eddie Murphy did, Party All the Time?
Yes.
Do you know the story behind that?
No.
I don't remember if it was Rick James or he
made
Rick James. He made a bet with Rick James saying, I bet you I can make a number one top hit song. And Rick James was like, okay. And they bet something of like millions.
Right.
Pocket change for guys like them, right? And then Eddie Murphy went to a different artist. I don't remember who. and he said, "Hey, help me come out with this one song. I don't really care. Just help me make top charts." And he came out with "Party All the Time," and that stayed at #1 for
A few weeks.
months on end.
Wow. I remember
Even
when
went
that song.
platinum.
Wow. I remember when that song came out. It was,
It's catchy.
It is. It's a very, he was smart. I'm sure he told him, give me something catchy.
Something that the audience can repeat with no hesitation.
Party all the time, party all the time, party all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
So enough of
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. It showed that Eddie Murphy could do anything.
Absolutely. He can sing too.
Oh, he can.
He can act too.
Well, if you ever seen any of his older concerts like Delirious or Raw, he has vocal talent. He imitates Elvis, old, TV actors, anybody. He's an incredible talent.
He is, and he can. He's hilarious to watch in those episodes, or not the comedy specials.
Oh yeah, if you ever get a chance, I mean, okay, Delirious, super offensive to those to nowadays standards. But if you put your sensitivity and you park it outside the door for a little bit, you'll enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So next we're gonna go with 1985 with a film about a 17-year-old high school student who is accidentally sent 30 years into the past in a time-traveling DeLorean invented by its close friend, the maverick scientist, Doc Brown. That movie is Back to the Future. Another Spielberg movie. Well, he produced it. And it was directed by Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis had done, about a year earlier, he had done a film for 20th Century Fox called Romancing the Stone.
Oh, I love that movie.
Great film. And
Danny DeVito is so funny in that.
Oh, he's perfect.
Yeah.
We have to do an episode on DeVito.
Yeah.
And it was a huge hit. But while he was, in production for Romancing the Stone, some of the test screenings were not that high.
Okay.
And the studio was kind of iffy now with Robert Zemeckis. Now, Robert Zemeckis at the time was also scheduled to direct another film right after called Cocoon.
Oh, yeah. I remember watching this one. Yeah,
with the aliens and stuff. And so they had no faith in Robert Zemeckis. So they fired him from Cocoon before he even started Cocoon.
Oh, that's messed up, man.
And
we have no faith in this project that you're doing right now. So from your future one as well.
Yeah, we have no future confidence in you.
Yeah.
So they fired him. Romancing the Stone comes out, and it's a huge success. And which basically later on they're like, okay, we want a sequel. He's like, oh, screw you guys. I mean,
you remember when you fired me?
Yeah, I'm doing this little tiny film called Back to the Future. So and
eat it.
Produced by one of the greatest producers of all time, Spielberg. And another great film that blends everything from fun to parody to nostalgia for the 50s. It was a great film.
I remember the first time I watched Back to the Future, it was when I mentioned to you, I've never seen Back to the Future all the way through. Like, I've seen bits and clips, and you were like, oh, boom, triple feature tonight. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, why not? I got time. And we ended up watching the first one, then we watched the second one, and then you fell asleep through the half of the third one, and you were like, okay, good night. Because it was like...
Well, it was like 1 in the morning.
It was like 12-ish, 1-ish in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to power through it. I ain't got nothing much left.
And they were great, weren't they?
They were amazing.
They're awesome. And there's been talk about doing a remake or reboot.
No.
But there is...
Hard no.
No. There is a resounding hell no from fans. And Universal is listening. They're not going to touch it.
No.
Just not a reboot, not a remake, not a reconstruction of its DNA or nothing. Just leave it alone. One of my and it's another timeless kind of classic.
Yeah, I mean, Michael J. Fox in that was just amazing as a little Marty McFly or little. I don't know how little.
Well, he was actually like 30.
He looked
or very
young for 30.
Yeah, or very close to 30. He was hired on actually. This is actor named Eric Stoltz. Sound familiar?
Kind of.
Okay. Remember Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
The heroin dealer?
Yeah. Oh, got it.
He was Marty McFly.
Huh.
Damn good actor.
Yeah.
But he just didn't fit the role.
Yeah.
And he actually went through I think a few weeks of production. And they filmed a bunch of scenes. And it was coming back, the dailies were coming back, and Zemeckis and Spielberg, they would see this and go, it doesn't work. And I've seen some of these cuts, these scenes that Eric Stoltz did. And Stoltz was he was great in it, but
I mean, if the character doesn't really fit, then you have to kind of rework around it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so they let him go, unfortunately, but hey, we got Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to jump to 1986. And this is about students at the United States Navy's elite fighter weapons school that they compete to be best in class. One daring young pilot learns a few things from a civilian instructor that are not taught in the classroom. We're talking about Top Gun, directed by Tony Scott, stars Tom Cruise, Kelly McGillis, and Val Kilmer. This was incredible.
Yeah.
I got to see this in the theater.
Lucky.
Oh, it was on, I forgot what screen, what theater. It was one in Hollywood. And it was the widescreen with like 2,000 seats in the theater. And it was just incredible to watch on the big screen. Such a popular film. Another one that really spawned an amazing soundtrack that sold millions of copies. Yeah. And Danger Zone.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah.
Yeah,
that entire opening is cool as hell.
Yeah, it's great. And, directed by Tony Scott, who is Ridley Scott's brother, Ridley Scott, who directed Alien. Yeah. And
love Alien.
Oh, great film.
Aliens is a little bit better, but that's my personal opinion.
And it's interesting because Tony Scott and Ridley Scott have very different styles.
Yeah.
One's more, visually aesthetic and slow and pacing and, story. And Tony Scott's like, yeah, I just want to kick your ass in this scene. I want you to feel this action. And he's great with action. He did also Days of Thunder. But it's not a great film, but not horrible. But it has that heart thumping, action and the solid editing that keeps you going. But Top Gun was so influential. Navy recruitment shot through the roof.
Oh, of course it did. Of course, everybody sees Tom Cruise as the fighter pilot, and they're like, I want to be like him.
Yeah, and they ended up, they end up being mechanics or something on a plane. Because the truth of the matter is, you got to go in as an officer and go through officers training school and all this stuff. I mean, you have to have a 4-year degree, to become an officer if you're going to join the Navy. These kids are joining right out of high school. And, they're going in E1s at most. Nah. But yeah, it was very influential and it was awesome. And of course, there was always talk of a sequel for many, many, many years, and it would come close and it would not. And then Tom Cruise, his popularity and his star started to shine even more. And it's like, okay, maybe, but let me do this first and that first. And then when they get back to Top Gun 2, no. And then it just kept going back and forth. But Tony Scott was always in the mix and always up for a sequel, as was Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise had always said, if he does the sequel for Top Gun, it's going to be with Tony Scott as director. But unfortunately, some years ago, Tony Scott, he committed suicide. He jumped off the Vincent Thomas Bridge near San Pedro, California. And from there, it was...
I don't think you could be able to do a sequel after such news.
Yeah. And so from there, it just kept, but it wasn't until a really solid script came Tom Cruise's way. And, he handpicked the director that he wanted to do it and do it the way Tony Scott would. His style, his vision. And it feels very much like a Tony Scott film. And it's just amazing. So the sequel, I love the original. But the sequel
was just, I think I went to go watch that one in the movie theaters when it first came out, like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I saw it like twice in the theater and like 4 times here at home once it came out on digital. So next we're going to go, and now this is a good one. We're going to go with 1987. And another aspect of the 80s was the suspense thriller that came out they started popping up in the mid to late 80s. And this one from 1987 is the story of a married man's one-night stand who comes back to haunt him when his lover begins to stalk him and his family. This movie's called Fatal Attraction.
Oh, okay.
And it's directed by Adrian Lyne, and it stars Michael Douglas and Glenn Close.
Okay.
This movie was terrifying to every single married man in America. Those who were cheating, those who thought of cheating, those who didn't think about cheating, but thought if I did, that's what would happen.
It just solidifies that, yeah, maybe stay loyal.
Yeah.
Just don't do anything.
Yeah. You don't want this one night stand coming back at you. I mean, there's a scene in there where she leaves. Oh yeah, her daughter, Michael Douglas's daughter, he buys her a bunny rabbit.
Uh-huh.
So one day he comes back from work, or he comes back and there's something on his doorstep.
Oh no.
A dead,
Oh.
boiled
Oh.
bunny rabbit.
As if dead wasn't bad enough, they gotta boil it too.
They boiled the bunny rabbit.
That's messed up, man.
Yeah, it was pretty messed up for the rabbit. And
Had nothing to do with the affair, but it's still paying the price.
So what did I do?
Yeah.
I'm just hopping around being cute and this crazy.
Minding my own business.
Yeah, it was good. It was really, really good. Glenn Close was just amazing as this psychotic, obsessed woman. It's like, oh yeah, you had sex with me, now you don't love me kind of thing, and now you don't want to talk to me. Dude, it was
You
crazy.
screwed me over? No, my friend. I screw you over.
Yeah. And it's a movie I recommend to all young men like yourself to go watch as you enter your lives of relationships and so forth. Think about cheating, watch this movie.
Just give it a watch.
Because
we'll see what can happen.
Yeah, because even though it's a 0.001% chance that it could happen to you, that's still 0.001% chance.
Too high.
Too
That is
high.
too high.
It's still too close to, yeah.
As they say in my generation, I'm not going to say what it literally means, but mess around and find out.
Yes. Yeah. And, but yeah, it's a good film. I highly recommend it. Check it out if you ever get a chance. Now we're going to go to 1988. And this one is a movie about a tune-hating detective in Cartoon Town, all right, in Hollywood, and there's a separate Cartoon Town, and there's a cartoon star. He's a rabbit, and he's framed for murder.
Was he boiled?
He was not boiled, but he was framed.
Aha.
But then we got to find out who framed Roger Rabbit. And this is another one directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Huh. Was he fired from this too?
Nope, because he was working for Spielberg, who produced it.
There you go.
And Fox is going, damn, we should have kept them. This was a very innovative film on quite a few levels. The use, first of all, the rare use of live action with traditional two-dimensional animation, blending it in a very fluid, natural manner. But also the fact that a lot of times in the past, when they would use when it would have two-dimensional animation on film, you'd have to kind of keep the camera static so that it can work. I don't know the technical thing behind it, but Spielberg really made this work. I mean, you have if you ever watch this again and notice the lighting, quote unquote, on the characters, it matches the live action ambiance.
Okay.
And it's great. But even more impressive was how Spielberg, they're interchangeable. These guys own the 80s.
Yeah.
But what's most impressive is how Spielberg was able to get Disney to let them use their Disney properties like Mickey and Minnie and so forth, and Warner Brothers to lend theirs, as well as other companies like Universal had a couple of characters in there too, to all be in one movie.
Now that's a mission.
That is, considering how Disney is now, they would never have.
Oh no, absolutely not.
No, they're like, no, we don't share.
Disney properties stay on Disneyland.
Disney don't share.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't have been thrown in it together now. Plus also the risque nature of the film. Mm-hmm. You have Jessica Rabbit. She's about to.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
She's a cartoon character.
It doesn't matter.
She's about to fall out of her dress.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she was hot.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So it was very risky. And that's something that Disney doesn't mess with. But they did. They allowed it all in there, and it was just an incredible film. Really great. Great cast. Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd was the evil guy who wanted to kill all the cartoon characters. But on a technical level, it was just amazing. It was an incredible
I mean,
film.
and trying to achieve that much in back in the day, you know what I mean?
Right. That I got to see at a theater in Hollywood called the Cinerama Dome.
Oh,
Yes, which is a huge concave screen.
it just wraps around you like a wet blanket.
Oh, it's incredible. It's amazing, which then became the ArcLight Theater. And then due to the COVID pandemic a couple years ago, they shut down indefinitely.
So sad.
And yeah, I mean, it's a Hollywood landmark. For those of you not from California, not familiar with the Cinerama Dome, look it up online. It's literally a huge white dome, just an architectural feat. It's incredible looking, and it is in danger to being demolished.
Renovate it.
Yeah, they need to just renovate it and
Open a museum.
or something.
I don't know. Anything.
Yeah, but really, really good one. So now we're going to go to 1989, the end of the 80s decade.
Okay.
And what a way to close it. We're going to go with a film about the Dark Knight of Gotham City.
Uh-huh.
Who could this be?
It's definitely somebody.
Yeah.
Probably something with to do with Burton. Possible.
Maybe. Well, let's see. And how he has, starts this war on crime with his first major enemy being Jack Napier, a.k.a. the Joker. We're talking about Batman, directed by Tim Burton, stars Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson.
Oh, I love this movie.
Great film. It's a complete... Now, I'll accept this. It is a reimagining and a restructuring of the original Batman.
Well, I mean, up to this point, you have the Adam West Batman, and that's it, right?
That was it. And, of course, the animated versions of Batman. This was the first big screen
Heroization of Batman.
And Tim Burton throws in his gothic spin on it and this whimsicalness. It just an incredible. Nobody had ever seen Batman like this. When there was talk about a Batman film, there was snickers. People were kind of like laughing. Really? Batman? Really? Because we're thinking Adam West, Burt Ward, Cesar Romero, that whole era of the 60s. Yeah. And Tim Burton just did this amazing thing with it. It's just a dark, brooding, whimsical, an amazing film. From the soundtrack to the cinematography
to the acting. I mean, Nicholson as the Joker.
Oh, well, it was almost a no-brainer for this guy. And he was smart.
That creepy smile.
He does. Well, Nicholson, not his first rodeo. He's been in the business at this point. He had been in the business for a while, and already he was Jack Nicholson. When they were discussing his fee, he took a lower fee. An acting fee.
In return for?
Higher back end points.
Okay.
He made millions and millions off of this. So let's say, I'm just going to throw a random number. Let's say an actor of his caliber back in 89 was bringing in 12 million, right?
Okay.
He probably got in 2 to 3 times as much.
Dang.
Just from that one day. He knew what was going on. He knew this was going to be great. But the biggest controversy was the casting of Michael Keaton. Even I was kind of iffy on this. I mean, I was familiar with Michael Keaton already with his early works as a comedian. Just a funny guy. He's kind of
and you're looking at him like Batman?
Yeah.
A very serious, brooding character?
Yeah, he almost had this back in the day, this flannel wearing, kind of easygoing, kind of football kind of guy, just an average dude, right?
Right.
And that was the kind of stuff, he was kind of like known for in just this really funny, slick kind of comedy. But Batman, in my opinion, he pulled it off.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd have to say in his portrayal of both Batman and Bruce Wayne, I'd have to say he's a very close second to Christian Bale. I think he's a tight second to Christian Bale, with George Clooney being at the bottom of the barrel. Because we've mentioned that before.
Yeah. We mentioned the Clooney Batman.
Yeah, and so this was the second big screen, a huge budget, big event iteration of a comic book hero up to this point. The first being in 1978, Superman. And it looked like at that point with Superman, it was just no other way but up.
Right.
For the superhero film. But then films kind of took a dive. I mean, Superman 2 was okay. Superman 3 was horrible. Superman 4 was horrible. I mean, they just declined. And at that point, Warner Brothers, which also owns the rights to Batman, they were like, we're done with the superhero thing.
It was here, one movie was good, and the rest were kind of on a deep dive.
Yeah, I'm sure they were thinking, okay, well, we got Wonder Woman, we got Batman, I'm sure they were thinking along that line. But after the failure of Superman 3, they were done. And not until 1989. And one could say that Batman 1989 is responsible for the resurgence and the growth of the superhero film. Because from then it was all the way, in the early 2000s you had the X-Men, for example, from Marvel. You had Blade and all these others. 2001, 2002 you had Spider-Man. Yeah. So you have to say Batman was responsible. I think Superman got us interested and got it, we took it seriously enough, but it wasn't until Batman that it all happened.
Yeah.
But I think Batman happened because of Superman.
Oh, absolutely, without a question.
And of course, Tim Burton as director. Just an amazing job. So basically that winds it down. That pretty much covers the 80s for us. Yeah. An incredible decade. I mean, as I've mentioned several times before, the 80s was just chock full of great films, but also a lot of crap films. I mean, for every E.T. you had Critters, which I thought was hilarious, or Trolls, or Leprechaun. But also you have your E.T.s and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't think you can point out any other decade like the 80s as far as the amazing output of iconic characters and film and content like any other before. Yeah. And since I think it definitely molded the 90s, the early to mid 90s. Yeah, just an incredible decade. So that was the 80s in review.
Huzzah.
So anything you want to add to this?
Very jealous of the fact that you got to see most of these movies, if not all of these movies, on the big screen. Just want to say that very loud and clear.
And it was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
So we hope you enjoyed our episode and hope you will join us next week with an all-new episode. So please help to support the pod by giving us a 5-star rating, leave us a good review. Another way you can help support the pod is simply by following and subscribing to us on Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, where we drop promos and trailers for our upcoming episodes. It's our Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. Also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channels. Again, all these links are in our show notes. You can also contact us directly by email to the filmjoepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. So any final words?
I'm Batman.
All right. So I'm Joe.
I'm Batman.
This is the Filmjoe Podcast, where film talk happens.